Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today, one you've all been waiting for, the surprise album from Beyoncé called Lemonade. There's no easy way for me to talk about Beyoncé, especially nowadays when her status as an icon has easily become bigger than just the music. And while you could tag some of it as the outgrowth of celebrity culture or it becomes hyper-focused online, I can't argue that Beyoncé has defied expectations when it comes to how art and music is consumed in the modern age. Most of which culminated in the surprise release of her self-titled album in 2013, after most critics had already assembled their list of the best albums of the year. And the fact that it sold so damn well is all the more indicative that Beyoncé at this point cannot be stopped, and I just wished I liked a lot more of her music. Again, I will not deny that Beyoncé has talent and vision, but more often than not I found her an incredibly frustrating performer and songwriter. I'll admit, right at the gate, I was never a Destiny's Child fan, and while Beyoncé's had a fair few songs that I liked when she inevitably went solo, I can easily assemble a much longer list of Beyoncé songs that I just can't stand. And the issues are all over the place. Sometimes Beyoncé has lacked the finesse and subtlety as a singer, particularly early on, although she has shown a lot of improvement. Sometimes the writing has really fallen short or not delivered the nuance that she needs to make the songs compelling. Many times, her guest stars have let her down, but more than ever, what I found frustrating about many Beyoncé songs is the instrumentation. You'd think there are as many people who work on Beyoncé songs, more than would have a recognizable melody or a tune. That was the biggest factor holding me back from liking her 2013 album when I covered it 3 years ago, along with the fact that it kind of ran long and had much better intentions than its execution. So when Beyoncé surprise released her newest record Lemonade through Tidal and accompanied with an hour-long short film on HBO, you know, two services that just drip with populist appeal. Look, I wasn't even surprised at this point. I was intrigued though, because digging through the liner notes, there were a fair few surprises. I mean, of course, Kendrick Lamar and The Weeknd were bound to show up, but Jack White and James Blake, production and co-writing credits from Ezra Koenig and Josh Tillman from Father John Misty, interpolations of Animal Collective and Led Zeppelin? That combined with a much tighter running time gave me a feeling that maybe the music and her co-stars won't let her down this time. So I checked out Lemonade. How was it? Well, I can say this. Even though, as I said, I have never ever been a Beyoncé fan, this record went further than I could have possibly expected in helping me get to that point. Because Lemonade, it caught me completely off guard. Not only is it easily her best album since 4, probably her best album period, it shows Beyoncé taking risks in her sound and style that I would have never expected, it also might be some of the most personal and emotive work that she's ever done. And especially coming after her self-titled release, Lemonade is a sort of artistic progression that I never would have expected from her, but I'm definitely thrilled to hear, because you know what? This might be one of the best albums that you'll hear this year. So before we deal with the massive lion in the room that is the themes and subject matter of this album, let's start off with Beyoncé herself. Now, as I've said, my issues with much of her 2000s work is that it lacked subtlety beyond the fuck you, I'm awesome template. But 2013 saw her take a big step forward in tapping into more subtle vocal inflections and tones, and that progression definitely continues here. This is a record that is walking a very tight emotional balance. Mistrust and grief, mingled feelings of relief and anxiety balanced against a potent sexual swagger, trying to find her own security and place of stability in her own mind while still willing to be nurturing to her partner, and all the while some of the most raw, explosive rage I've ever heard from a Beyoncé on an album. This is a record that demands she gets righteously pissed, the sort of fury that claws at her voice, or bring a militant edge that should scare people who are unprepared and prefer their R&B unthreatening. And while Beyoncé has gotten angry before on album, the raw intensity of the rage here is far more compelling and personal, because you can tell it's personal. And unlike her self-titled album, her male co-stars can balance off of that far better. Take Jack White, who has no problem anchoring the hook on his song, warning the target to stay away from Beyoncé's fury with the same cautious distance he cultivated on his last album, Lazaretto. Or take The Weeknd, who has always been at his best, who is playing off of women who can overpower or overwhelm his nihilistic sexuality, and when 6 Inch has him take the first verse serving as the hype man, it's the perfect setup. And then Kendrick Lamar, who infuses freedom with a sort of layered metaphor that has run through to both Pimp a Butterfly and Untitled Unmastered, showing the deeper freedom that must be achieved in the mind to move past internalized grief and depression to find a sense of self-worth in oneself. Really, the only player who doesn't really impressed me vocally is James Blake on Forward. That's more because Forward's barely an interlude and doesn't really give him a lot of space for anything on that song. And really, he still sounds good, so it's a pretty minor gripe. Of course, part of that is the production and instrumentation, and while I've always expected Beyoncé's production to have the depth and opulence you would expect from the best producers that money can buy, what caught me off guard was a lot of the instrumental choices. The opening tracks might seem to be in line with what you would expect from her. Rubbery, low synths and piano playing off rich cushions of strings and female backing vocals and trap hi-hats. The sort of elegance that has plenty of restraint and poise, but when we get to Don't Hurt Yourself with Jack White, which piles in the symphonic vocals to play off the seedier organ and the darker creep of the bass, driven by a Led Zeppelin sample and razor-sharp guitars, it's clear that Beyoncé is stepping into rougher territory unlike never before, balancing out poise with real fire with incredible ease. And it comes through again with the smoky filters and warped sampling of 6-inch with the sleazier horn line and great Animal Collective interpolation on the bridge, and especially on the layered sampling, the fuzzed out organ, and the downright militant fire of Freedom, riding one of Just Blaze's best beats of his career with the stomping drums and the distortion makes the song feel absolutely massive and kick-ass. And that's not saying there isn't cleaner production here. The heartbreaking piano ballad of Sandcastles, the staccato guitar on All Night that picks up this heavenly swell as it grows with the strings, the horns, and the bass line sampled from Outkast, and especially that buzzing synth against what high flutters of what might be a theremin on Love Drought. And what's important to emphasize, there are real melodies here driving the hook in the instrumentation. Hell, the one track where that's not really quite the case is Formation. I mean, the horns are good, and it's definitely one of Mike Will Made It's best beats, but the odd rubbery synth tone doesn't quite hit the balance of opulent class and raw passion that so much of the rest of this album does and really clicks for me. I can see the anthemic potential, but doesn't quite fit together as well. Sorry is a similar case, but I think the bubbly nature of the song, especially in the synth line, does land better, at least for me. However, I can imagine you're all expecting me to talk about the country song on this album called Daddy Lessons, and for me, it sparked two major thoughts. One, it looks like Beyoncé's been paying attention to the same Muscle Shoals sound that Dave Cobb and Sturgill Simpson have, because those horns are coming from that same inspiration, and they really do sound great on that song. And two, I want to hear Beyoncé make more country songs because her voice is a great fit for it, and she seems like she gets the genre fairly well. But you know what? That's all the music. What's Beyoncé trying to say with this album? Well, as I said, there's a narrative arc to this record, and to the shock of pretty much everyone who's not in the know, that arc is focused on the alleged cheating of her husband, Jay-Z. And I think it's important to note the audacity of this, because while Jay-Z never shows up on this album, he has to have known the lyrical content and accusations that were leveled, because Beyoncé, she's not holding back in the slightest. Even on tracks like Sorry, where she damn near names the woman that Jay-Z supposedly cheated with. And yet, while so many people are probably saying that Lemonade could double as Beyoncé's divorce papers, this album gets significantly more complex than that, both in portraying Beyoncé's state of mind and her choice of actions. This, incidentally, is where the real nuance comes into the writing. And while I might find points like Beyoncé grabbing lyrics from Soulja Boy for the outro of Hold Up, I feel that's pretty ridiculous, it does plenty to highlight Beyoncé's reaction. She initially wishes that Jay-Z would know or admit that she knows the truth, instead of just barreling over her concerns with naked lying to her face, and she questions why he would bother chasing other women and compromise their love, willing to show her own insecurity even if it does make her look kind of jealous or crazy. I mean, she's Beyoncé. Why would any guy want anyone else beyond her? And then the rage and the walkout happens, and while the catharsis is potent as hell, it also shows Beyoncé is very much still in love with Jay-Z, which she then draws the parallel to her own cheating father on Daddy Lessons. And then this album does something unexpected. Beyoncé actually goes back to Jay-Z. By God, she doesn't want to. Sandcastles shows that she promised not to come back to him, but not only does she know that their love is stronger together than apart, but Jay-Z reportedly actually did break down, showing the humanity and emotion that he so rarely glimpsed to anyone else in this day and age. And Beyoncé, she wants to move forward and keep trying to make it work, and that's why Freedom is quintessential at this point of the album, as the final line of the chorus says, "'Cause a winner don't quit on themselves." That she needs to purge out the negative emotions that would chain her back from moving forward and actually trying here. She's more than willing to admit their relationship, it's far from perfect, one of so many flawed diamonds, and that it's gonna take time for her to really forgive him, but you know what? She's willing to try and put in the effort, considering their love and the relationship is actually kind of worth it. The sort of conclusion is not one you would typically expect based on the surface impression of Beyoncé, but it implies a maturity of their relationship that doesn't feel idealistic and feels that much more realistic and grounded. The sort of real power that feels grounded in both reason and passion, and I can respect that a lot. It shows a lot coming from Beyoncé that she's willing to take that action. In short, you know what? This is probably Beyoncé as ever close as that she's come to winning me over. There's a passion and intensity to this album that feels personal personal, and yet done with a sort of righteous and nuanced presentation that can aim bigger. Considering a massive step forward that this feels from her self-titled album, I'm strongly inclined to give this a light 9 out of 10 and the highest of my recommendations. As I said, I've never ever been a Beyoncé fan, but if Lemonade is a sign of the experimentation, delivery, and writing to come, she might just win me over yet, because this is one of the best records of this year. Check it out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I can imagine people who watched my old Beyoncé review are going to be a little bit surprised by this, but you know what? This is friggin' great. I'm not even denying that. She really pulled it off. Beyond that, I've got the poll up here, so what did you guys think? You probably loved it. I wouldn't blame you. Anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation? Any other albums coming out that you want me to take a look at? I will try to give them a listen. And yes, don't even need to ask, I'm gonna be covering Views from the Six. Just, it's coming whenever Drake decides to drop it. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.